Okay, already I think we have a person, I think we have the privilege of a person who stands very tall in his achievements. And of course, he has also been standing tall because when he's on the peak, he's probably at a height that most of us, I'm sure, have not touched, right? I mean, he's talking of 8,000 meters plus. Am I right? It's about 25,000 feet, 27,000 feet. How much?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Thank you so much, Bhuvaneshwar, for such a warm welcome. Thank you so much, NASSCOM, for having me over here today. Very good evening to all the wonderful people who joined us here today. Thank you for a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Arjun. I think it's a privilege, pleasure to have you with us, and thank you very much for taking the time to be here. I mean, you've taken to an adventure sport, if I can call it so, or a sport which is not so very common, and you've taken to it at an age which is a very formative age, right? I mean, scaling Everest at 16. Obviously, that means you started your thinking, your practice much earlier. Obviously, it's not overnight. What sparked that interest? What was that one single spark that made it happen? Where did it all start? What was that first motivation to do this?
I think I clearly remember the point. It was in my sixth class. There was a chapter based on Madam Bachendripal ma'am.
Okay.
She was the first Indian lady to climb Mount Everest, and there was an excerpt from her book. And by the end of the chapter, my Hindi teacher asked the entire class that, so now who all want to climb the world's highest mountain? And I was the only monkey, I think, amongst all of them who raised my hand, and I said, one fine day I will. Little did I know that a few years down the line, I actually would end up climbing the world's highest mountain.
Wow.
And then from that sixth class boy dreaming, then in my 10th grade, I got an opportunity to go about training in the field of mountaineering at Nehru Institute of Mountaineering in Uttarkashi. Found more monkeys like me around me and realized that, okay, this can be turned into a profession as well, though it was a very far-fetched dream. Even while training in 2008, 2009, it was something which people had not dreamt of before. 8,000 meter mountains is, like climbing 8,000 meter mountains is generally done by older people. The older you are, the more better you get at mountaineering. The more younger you are, the more vulnerable you are actually.
Okay.
So it was something which people had not imagined before, that was actually the bigger challenge, convincing people that I could do it, but thankfully with the support of my parents and more than 24,000 people back in the day who funded my climb without various crowdfunding platforms in 2009, 2010, internet being very primitive, social media being very primitive. There were more than 24,000 people who supported my climb, and on the wings of hope, I was finally standing in front of Everest.
Wow. That's great. So good to hear this. In fact, I think the topic says scaling new heights, resilience, focus, determination. But from whatever you tell me, I think I would probably call it you to have the 3 Ps, right? Patience, persistence, and perseverance. It's not easy. So how did you build this at such a formative age?
I think a lot. I was very grateful to have my father from the Indian Army. He served as an officer in the 1st Paras in the Special Forces unit. He was inducted into the army in 82, and then he was from one of those first batches which trained the NSG itself in the 87, 88. So I was very privileged to have that army dad at home, which was very particular with things, and an artist mother. So I think when you have a mom as an artist from JJ School of Arts and a dad as an army officer, this is what you get, a mountaineer.
Wow, good, nice. Okay, before we kind of go into the various achievements, and by the way, audience, I think I have a few quiz questions for you. I think do watch out, and those who answer it right can come here on stage and receive it from Arjun himself. So watch out. So by the way, a mountaineer who climbs very high-rise mountains, I mean, there is a different name for it. There's a word starting with A. What's it? No Googling. I have the feed of the 4 CCTV cameras on my phone, so we will check that. No Googling, no checking. There's another word, a synonym for a mountaineer who claims high-rise peaks. The clue is the word starts with the letter A. Yes? Any rise of hands? Yes, please. Pardon? Okay, it's alpinist. Fine. I think you can. We will
can
we will
take
give
that
you
as an
the.
answer.
We'll call you here once the session is over. Great. Thank you. Okay. Now let's move on and say. I mean, I'm sure this has not been an easy journey, right? I mean, climbing, I mean, it's a very, very inclement weather, tough kind of conditions. You need to train yourself well, so much, right? How do you, any specific challenge that you've seen over the last, I think you've been climbing for about 15 years now?
Yes.
So any one specific instance that comes to mind?
I was born asthmatic. I had childhood asthma. My father has asthma. So I think I identified my weaknesses at a very young age, and my parents always pushed me to develop my physical strength. And that is what led me to train very hard. I was a national level karate player. I'm a black belt in karate and taekwondo. I used to run a lot. I used to play football, name the sport. So as a child, I was always, my mind was, I used to be sitting in the classroom, but the mind was always on the field. The school knew that. They always pushed me towards it. Also, they supported me. But training came in much later for mountaineering. You had to be very specific. Endurance-based sport. Basically, it's not like a competitive sport where you just have to go and perform for 50 minutes, or if you don't score runs, you can put your head down, come back in, and then you go out there and perform again the next time. If out here on 8,000 meter mountains, the margin of error is very slim.
Yes.
Half of a foot up and down, you can lose your life. If you give up, you lose your life. Most of the times, the weather conditions can determine temperatures. Temperatures during the daytime go up to plus 55, plus 50 degrees Celsius. In the night time, it can go dip down to minus 70, minus 80 degrees Celsius. You take a cup of hot boiling water, you throw it in the sky, it does not like touch the ground, right? It's that cold.
Wow.
So atmospheric pressure dips down really much. All the water in your body is like trying to escape. There's water seeping between your lungs and your like chest cavity. There's water seeping into your head, between your brain and your skull. Your stomach muscles are contracting, your brain cells are dying, right? It's not an environment which human body is basically built to survive. So training for something like this, where we have to sometimes, we don't get to sleep for 4 days during rescue missions where mountains are stuck or bad weather is coming in. Oxygen levels almost 1/3 of what we breathe out here. Your IQ level drops down to what of a 4-year-old, right? If I cut off the oxygen to your brain, even your IQ level drops down. So basic decision making gets very difficult. Training for this was obviously a lot of physical endurance based training, cycling 50-60 kilometers in less than 2 hours, running half marathons, endurance. We used to do a lot of calisthenics. Obviously, then we had to practice a little bit of yoga as well for the mental fitness, because your body generally doesn't give up so easily. You train your body, but the physical aspect or training your body physically is to tap into that hemisphere in your brain, or to reach that meditative zone where you can come out of the physicalness and you can still keep performing. So mental preparedness is also very much important, so that you do not lose your nerve, you do not lose your calm. In a sport like mountaineering, your own decisions are going to affect your other climbers' lives. Out of the 17 8,000 meter expeditions which I've done so far, only 2 or 3 of them we've come back with the same number of people who we left with.
Wow.
So it's almost like Russian roulette, right? You're breaking bread with everybody for the next 2 months, and you don't know who's going to not come back home this time. It can be you, it can be your fellow climbers, it can be your own teammates. So margin of error is very, very, very low, and often the cost of exploration has to be paid with life itself. Okay. Now I do sound like a madman while I say this, and it does make you question why you do it, but
yes.
I think that mystery somewhere lies between the base of these mountains and the summits.
Absolutely. No, true, very true. I mean, so I think one thing that clearly comes out is the mental fortitude, right? I mean, how strong you can be mentally in these circumstances. And I'm just trying to relate. Most of the folks you see here are people who work in the tech industry, work in large teams, cross-functional teams, cross countries, cross time zones. Not easy, right? I mean, you have to probably be awake when you actually wanted to. Your body is saying you should be sleeping, and vice versa. It's not easy. So I think a lot of mental, balance needs to be created. Now, I can very much relate to what you're saying, right? I mean, you go with as a team, you're not even too sure how do you come back. Now with that, the next point that you actually mentioned, what's the balancing act? How do you actually manage this, right? The risk reward of this whole sport or journey. How does one take this?
See, I've always thought it this way. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but I feel like bad weather days, rainy days come in everybody's life. Everybody sitting out here also has a mountain in their lives to climb. It does not have to be a real mountain, but everybody has a mountain which we all are climbing in our lives. The process of climbing this mountain is always same. And obviously very close to the summit, we always tend to give up, right? We always feel like giving up. So it's about finding that mountain and then just not giving up. The balancing act comes in with, you have to give yourself break. Failure is a part of being successful, and you can only be successful if you're going to be comfortable with your failures. Out of the 17 8,000 meter expeditions which I've conducted so far in the last 15 years, my biggest achievement are not the summits, right? Not the 8 summits which I have reached to, but the rest of the expeditions where I did not make it to the summit, right? That is where the real lessons were hidden, and displaying character at your lowest point is where you will come across this love affair, which even sir was mentioning, I think, of bootstrapping when he was talking about very passionately about bootstrapping. Speaker, another session before the last one, Srikanth sir was speaking about it, and I think it was amazing to see that passion in him also. So I feel that balancing acts are difficult to play when the matter is of heart and passion, right? And but we always need to find the balance, right? Because it does wear you out sometimes.
Yes.
Especially when I was young, it did not weigh so much on my head, but losing team members,
Yes.
grieving, the process of grieving, the process of emotional wearing out, just not physically, right? Bearing the marks of sunburns on your face, or like losing fingers or something on an expedition is still okay, but losing team members, emotional baggage, sometimes losing people on the mountain does wear you out. Extreme stressful environments do wear you out. Talking about something which you're so passionate about, and I realize passion is passion only till the time you get to do it only sometimes. As soon as it becomes your profession, then it's the same stressful environment, right? So dealing with those stressful environments is something which I think only experience can teach you.
Yes.
And one has to have the will to go through it on an everyday basis and yet not give up. There's no way around it, I think. So balancing acts are difficult, but I like to do other activities also. I rest well. One must always rest well. One must really try and do some opposite things, kindle more passions and more activities. Try and take a break sometimes from your passion also, because it always gives you a fresh outlook towards the entire perspective, and come back with a fresh, more sharper edge for your challenges which you have set for your own self.
Great. Thank you, Arjun. I think that really helps, right? I mean, it's the emotional challenges that one goes through in such circumstances is not easy, right? Now, I mean, I would like to kind of, deflect a little and go. Probably you're again in this room one of those few people who probably gone to a place where many of us haven't. How do you look at the whole environmental impact and the environmental conservation piece, right? I mean, you see environment in its natural, pristine flavor, which many people don't. So how do you kind of, relate to this? How do you think we can do more and leave it as good for generations to come?
I'm very grateful to have had chosen mountaineering as a career, and for the mountains to have chosen me and had the support which it requires to actually become a professional mountaineer. Talking about mountains and 8,000 meter peaks, there are 14 mountains on planet Earth which rise above the altitude of 8,000 meters. All of them are situated in the Himalayan range itself, starting from the Karakoram Himalayas far off in Pakistan, all the way to the very far east, ending at Kanchenjunga in Sikkim, right? These are the largest, easily it can be said that they are the largest rising mountains above the Earth's crust. Just to set perspective, Burj Khalifa is only 1,100 meters in height, right? And we're talking about 8 kilometers straight up, 8,000 meters plus. So these are the largest mountains which contribute to the largest glacial areas. When I say glaciers, automatically it has to come into your head that they are the only sources of fresh water for more than 3 billion people who are situated in these regions, which start from Pakistan, going from Tibet, China, Nepal, India, all the way up to Bhutan and the Far East countries. So these are some of the most densely populated regions in the world on planet Earth. And these glaciers of these 14 8,000 meter mountains are so far the largest ones which you can see, right? Because the size of these mountains itself is so big, the feeding points are so big. Over the last 1.5 decades, it's sad to say that the impact of climate change has definitely been there.
Okay.
Glaciers are receding. Soon enough, we are going to see shortage of, rivers are already shrinking. Whatever
Yes.
are there, we don't leave them any which ways, right? When they cross the big cities, human impact is very big.
Yes.
Glaciers are receding, so water is going to be lesser in the coming few days. Snowfall every year is getting lesser and lesser.
Yes.
Sometimes when it happens very erratically. Sometimes when it doesn't happen for entire years. So prediction of weather is very difficult, even with the best of the best satellite technology. And we have from US maritime reports coming in, Chinese satellite weather patterns coming in. We have Indian Met Department sending us weather reports over there. But still, like, predicting weather has become so difficult on these giants because we're trying to sneak into the small windows of comparatively better weather on these mountains to summit them. So we do face the blunt of it, but impact can be seen very vividly. And I think we must all consciously try and work towards the environment or conservation of environment in whatever capacity we can, because this is the problem which we all are going to be bound by. We are all bound by fresh water. We are all dependent on the Himalayas for fresh water, they being the only resources of fresh water for us. Till now, even countries like Israel still have not been able to find proper solutions and viable solutions to derive fresh drinking water from the sea. So sea water is definitely not possible for us human beings. The only water which you can drink is from these glaciers. So we must consciously, all of us must try and put in an effort towards this thing of conserving as much as we can, putting in some kind of, or try to make our minds think for solutions which can help reduce the impact of us humans on this particular region of the Himalayas, because it does, at the end of the day, we are all going to be bound by it.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Good. Okay, by the way, I was catching up with Arjun during lunchtime, and he actually gave us some piece of hope. I said, probably, you've been able to start early, and you've probably been able to do all this. For many of us who have not done it, maybe it's too late. He said, no, he actually gave me a lot of hope. He said, it's only after 30 or 40 is when it's easy to do all this. So he said in the formative years, younger years, it's more difficult. So I think all of us in this room have definitely hope. If at all there is an interest in that line, we should probably try it. And that's an important learning I had today. With that, let me quickly go back to one quiz question before I move on the discussion with Arjun. Arjun talked about 14 peaks which are greater than a particular 8,000 feet and so on. They are called, there's a separate name for that. What are those peaks called? Answer is not difficult. It's not a difficult answer. Anybody can try. No answer. Oh, somebody's there.
We have one person.
Pardon? No. Anyone else?
We have a couple of hands behind the audience.
There's a raise of hand at the back.
Superb.
Pardon?
Yeah.
8,000ers, that's right. It's just called 8,000ers. I said the answer is easy. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we move on, and probably, Arjun, I think before I kind of come to a little bit of your future aspirations and so on, just wanted to kind of touch upon, I know you've kind of done this climb across, not just in India, but around the surrounding countries. But I think in all of this, I'm sure you've seen a lot of unity and diversity of the culture of the country. How have you been able to resonate with this, imbibe this, and probably spread across a message?
So, fortunately, I'm the first Indian to have made it so far in the journey of the 14 8,000ers. I've climbed 8 of the 14 8,000ers. Now 6 of them are remaining. Unfortunately, not a lot of Indians when we go for climbing these 8,000-meter mountains, but we do come across a lot of people. Like the last expedition, it's generally a very multicultural experience. We have people from all over the world joining us. Excuse me, for these expeditions. So representing India itself, I think, is a privilege, and especially seeing how the world looks at India now is also, I'm so grateful to the forces which are working towards improving the image of India in front, because now people, when they look at India in the last 5 years, they look at India as a very big superpower. It's a party which everybody wants to be a part of, right? They can't ignore us anymore. Earlier, when I started back in 2010, people weren't used to it, because mountaineering being a white man's sport, right? Always,
Yes.
people weren't used to listening so much from a brown guy over there and giving them history lessons and fact checking them about the current situations and the geopolitical scenarios which are going on. So I used to get a lot of slack for that. But now that over the last 15 years, I've been so consistent. So representing India is definitely one of the biggest I think a privilege which I have, and now when people look at India, they definitely cannot ignore us anymore. And I'm so happy to say that, like, when people talk about India now, they don't look at us just as a chaos, right? They now have started saying there's harmony in this chaos, and how we put, like, how our diversity is actually coming out to be one of our biggest strengths, right? Because the more diverse people we have, the more kind of behavioral patterns we have, the more kind of intuitive solutions we can come forward with. There is nothing like India in this world. There is nothing which you can do, cut, copy, paste from the European nations or from the Americas or from Australian. There's nothing like India. Nothing which has been prevalent or which is viable in other nations can be cut, copy, pasted over here. You have to come up with something very genuine, intuitive, and special for our nation. So definitely I think they just cannot ignore us. And then plus a whacked out person like me representing India over there, like a crazy guy, they definitely, I think they look at us in completely different light.
No, I think I would attribute much of that impression changing is also because of the achievements of people like you. So I think we should attribute this to you too.
Thank you.
Okay, before we get to some questions in the audience, maybe a couple of things. Is there any unfinished agenda for you in this?
Absolutely, very big unfinished agendas right now. So out of the 14 8,000, just 6 of them are remaining. Only one of them is now in actually in Nepal. I finished most of them in Nepal. The Tibetan plateau is over for me. Now the remaining 6 of them lie in a very controversial zone, which is called the POK. 5 of them are now in Pakistan. Thankfully, or I don't know, unfortunately, half of the mountain out of these, the highest mountain of Pakistan is K2, and that's like a dream mountain for me. No Indian has ever been able to climb it. It used to be a part of India, but now it's half in Pakistan and half of it has gone into Tibet, which is now controlled by China. But to climb Pakistan's highest mountain, like I would rather, I really want, like, I don't want to have, like, I'm very grateful to the sponsors which I've had so far, but I would lovely to have, instead of a Pepsi or a Seiko on my wrist and a Mountain Dew pushing it, like American and Japanese, I would like to have Indian brands come forward and support these expeditions, so that when we are representing India, we can have that kind of a risk-taking, messaging which we put forward, that yes, the young India is adventurous. Yes, that the young Indians have the capability to take that risk and to support visions like these. Even if it's very high risky business, we are ready for the challenges which we face. So as much as I'm grateful to all my sponsors, I really would like to appeal to people that, we need more people to support us, more Indian brands to come forward,
yes,
and to support such expeditions, because see, ultimately this is a matter of I don't know how to put this, but no Indian has so far never been able to climb in Pakistan's highest mountain, but Pakistanis have been able to climb, let's say, Kanchenjunga from the Nepalese side. But mountains have always taught us that there is no differentiator, right? The mountains is a very great equalizer.
Yes.
The mountains don't know the difference between man and woman, rich or poor. It does not differentiate between young and old. It does not even know sometimes the difference between a big mistake and a small mistake.
Very true.
It's a great equalizer.
Yes.
So we always come together as communities. We try to put our best foot forward, and that is what I'm trying to do from India, to represent India in its epitome and in its full light. And K2 definitely is a very big unfinished business for me, very emotional business for me, and I would definitely, I really hope that I'm able to manifest the Grand Slam of mountaineering for India. There are less than 44 people in the world who ever climbed all these 8,000 meter peaks. Out of 1.7 billion people from India, none Indian in that 44 list. When I think India can compete in the space race, when India can compete in the tech race of the world, I think now India is going to be competing soon enough, even in the human endurance race. And I hope I get an opportunity for that.
No, of course. And I'm sure you will be probably the first Indian to do all this 14. I'm sure all of them, all of us wish seeing you do that.
Thank you so much.
One last thing, and I think going back to your point which you spoke, and you said it's never too late to get to something like this. What's your message to people here and probably the younger generation to take to sports like this or adventure sport like this, and what's that you're doing in this?
I'm not. I try to stick to what I'm good at doing, which is mountain climbing, and not giving advice to anybody, because I never took anybody's advice and always just followed the voice from within. So must have a passion in your life and must try and listen to the voice from within, because it will always make you question things in a good way. So always do have a passion. As I said before, climbing the mountains outside made me realize, made me climb the mountains within. There were versions of Arjun which I was never acquainted of. The biggest mistake which we often do in our lives is that we dream too small. We highly underestimate ourselves. Sometimes the boundaries of our imagination are also so small that we hardly realize what we are capable of doing. So one must realize to dream big and to dare to chase them, right? Because you'll realize that even the boundaries of your imagination were so limited that you'll come across versions of yourself. As soon as you'll push yourself out of your comfort zone, you'll realize versions of yourself which you never thought you had within you. So always, like all of us have a mountain in our lives to climb, right? Climb that mountain. I hope I found my Everest on Everest, and I hope you find your Everest too, and dream big and dare to chase it. That's it.
Thank you, Arjun. That's great. Good. Before we kind of come to a close, one last question again. Arjun has scaled one peak and given it a name. And there's some kind of a remote connection to another place in this state of Odisha with a similar name. Can anyone answer what this could be? I'll repeat the question. Arjun has scaled a peak and given it a name. And incidentally, that name has something very similar to a place of a similar name in this state of Odisha. The gentleman there at the back. Pardon?
Dholagiri.
No.
But I have not yet climbed Dholagiri.
No. Anyone else?
That's the last one in Nepal.
Anyone else on this one? Somebody here? Raising the hand?
Kanchenjunga.
Huh?
Kanchenjunga.
No, but where is the Kanchenjunga in Odisha? I said there is the name of the place, what he has named has got a similarity, a place on a similar name in this state. No, not you, Nirupam. No, not you.
Devamali.
No. Oh God, this is very easy, guys. Absolutely easy. No. Kalinga. He has not named any mountain as or peak as Kalinga. No Googling, please.
I am just left with one option because many names come out. So, is it Daringibadi?
Pardon?
Daringibadi. It's Kashmir of Odisha.
No.
Let them know now.
Huh?
We can let them know.
Okay, so he had climbed a peak which was not yet named, and he called it Mount Kalam. Incidentally, there is a Kalam island in the state of Odisha. That's what I was referring to. Okay. Fine, I think we're largely kind of on time. I mean, almost at the end of our time, but maybe we could take a couple of questions from the audience. If anyone, please raise your hand, identify and keep your questions brief. Anyone? Any questions? Yes, please. Can
please have
pass
the
on the
mic
mic
in the
here?
front row?
Can somebody pass the mic?
Front
The row, the front row here.
Srikanth, first of all, fabulous moderation. You woke us all up. Thank you. And
you.
Arjun, wow, what a session. You spoke about you're climbing, the mountains outside, but you're conquering the mountains inside of you. So it's a personal question, but obviously, the audience is
Absolutely.
there, so choose only what you want to answer. But if there's one mountain you think you climbed internally, and that is in the making of what you are today, what would that be?
Fantastic.
I think so. I was always very restricted towards me thinking that because all through my schooling life I was told I wanted to study physics first. I was very curious towards science, but there was a mark sheet in my 10th grade which told my school and everybody that obviously I was not capable of studying science because I did not get a certain percentile. Right? I was very curious by nature, but I'm very glad that it did not. So I was always told, because I was not below average, probably the last guy coming in the class, failing in like 4 to 5 subjects every year. Even in my 12th boards, I had to give a compartment. But I used to think that I was not good at all of this. All the brain processing, and whatever I could do was going to be with my 2 hands and my 2 legs. So I focused on this way too much all my life. But now that I'm running my own company, Climb Up Adventures, where we are training youngsters across schools in adventure, more than 1 lakh students we train every year across 500 schools in India. We take them, we have an in-school program, we have an outbound program, we take them out for the trips, we give them important life-breaking skill sets like fire making, shelter building, night sky navigation, map reading, realizing basic survival skill sets, so that in terms of like destruction and when nature takes its course in calamity situations, they become activators and not like victims. So we're training them for all of this, and I realized in the whole process that by following my passion, I also became a business person. Today we have more than 400 plus instructors working with us. Wow. I never thought that I had the capacity to run business or to realize what it takes and go through all of the accounting bit and little bit trying to sustain a business. I used to think of all of this as a very complicated process, but all I would like to say is that you just have to be passionate, right? And you will find solutions. As long as you are looking forward to find a solution to the problem which you identified in front of you, you will put on lots of hats and you will very joyfully do it. And your mind automatically becomes very curious, and you start to now gain that knowledge. Automatically now my Instagram and YouTube and everything becomes like a source of knowledge for me. And I didn't go to university because I was climbing Makalu from the age of 19 to 23. It took me 4 years to climb the 5th highest mountain. Once I lost a team member, once the Nepal earthquake happened, once we had to turn back because of rope. So whenever people ask me which university you went to, I tell them it was the University of Makalu, because Mount Makalu made me into the mountaineer who I am. It taught me very important life lessons of failure. So I think that those are the silos which I have conquered within my brain. Those are the walls which I have shattered within my brain itself of the things which I thought I could not do. Today, as a young entrepreneur, I am seeing myself do it, of filing back tax returns and GSTs and whatnot, and understanding all of this also. So I think that's the mountain within which I am climbing.
Great. Thank you, Arjun. I think you have left us all more energized. And actually, I think all of us are leaving feeling a lot better. A lot more motivated than when we came in, right?
I really
Thank
hope
you,
so.
and I'm sure everyone here and more, and every Indian is joining me and wishing you to scale all the peaks that you want and many more. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so
It's been
much.
a pleasure
Thank you so
speaking
much,
to you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Srikanth,
Thank you very
just
much.
one thing.
Thank you, Arjun.
Excuse me. Just one thing before we end. Here I am.
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt here,
No,
but
not
I
at
have
all.
very important thing for you, Arjun, to say, as I really want from the core of my heart that you should know this. First thing first, I would like to echo Madam, fabulous moderation.
Thank you.
And Arjun, you have absolutely left all of us speechless. So I'm not
Thank you
sure
so
if
much.
you know this, in Odisha, just a few months ago, 1 or 2 months, so some people have started Odisha Mountaineering Association, known as
Wonderful.
OMA. So the picture that you were giving of the past India, That's the picture of OMA today, with the people from Odisha who are aspirants to climb Everest or any such mountain. So if you would really like to, forward a helping hand to them and guide them forward so that, the government along with the aspirants could really go ahead and achieve a stage where you are today, that would really be great.
Love to, absolutely.
And just to connect you, I have left my card with this volunteer. He'll pass on the card. If you're really interested and you're really keen, please connect with me. I'll connect with the OMA with you.
Most certainly. We've been
Great.
doing this with several states, and it would only be my pleasure if I can help more Indians, or plant the seed of adventure in anybody, just not the state of Orissa. But definitely, I get what you're saying, and I've never been too reliant on the government when it comes to passion-related matters.
Agree.
You have to be a force
That is
of
the
nature
reason I stood
and
up now.
self-sustainable, and that is why we will make sure that whatever is required, we'll try and do it.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really inspiring.